Hey, this is like my 8th time trying to film this video, so I hope that this one goes well. I wanted to talk about a certain parrot YouTuber. Nobody's really been talking about her, except for in the comments of her videos, and I think that something needs to be said. I was gonna make this like a message to her, but I don't think she'll listen to it. I don't think she'll care. Maybe she'll see this video, but I don't think she'll care. I don't think anything she does will change. And I wanted to talk about it because nobody's really heard me talk about it. I complain to my dad about it frequently. My dad is essentially the only person who's heard me talk and complain about this woman. So I wanted to make a video talking about my problem with her, because there is a problem with her. I don't think she has business owning birds. This particular YouTuber is Carolin Von Petzholdt. I'm probably not saying that right. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I don't watch her very frequently because I don't like her content. I think there's a problem with it. So what sparked this is she has I think it's like 6 months old. She has a 6-month-old baby hyacinth macaw, and she free flies her birds, which, excuse me, I'm sorry, which is which isn't automatically bad if you've taken the proper precautions and appropriately trained your birds. But this bird was not completely trained. She took it out in high winds. Keep in mind, this is a baby. She took the bird out in extremely high winds, did not put the GPS on it because the GPS harness didn't fit him anymore. She let him out to fly. He wasn't able to combat the wind, and he was blown away and is now lost. And her concern with this does not seem to be that it's a bird that she loves and cares for. Her main concern with the loss of her bird seems to be that she spent $15,000 on the bird. I'm sure she cares about the bird deeply, but I feel like if your bird got lost, the last thing you would think about is how much you spent on it. And I think that I don't think she's responsible. She's clearly not. This happens frequently with all of her birds. I think she's got like 6. I'm pretty sure all of them fruit fly, but I'm not sure. They will constantly just get lost. They're like, there's a good portion of her videos are just like, I lost my bird. Like, and instead of like thinking maybe I shouldn't be free flying my birds, or maybe I should take more precautions when free flying my birds, she continues to free fly them and they get lost. And a lot of the places she free flies them are parks, which is again fine if you're careful. But most of these parks have a lot of dogs. And oftentimes, even though the dogs are supposed to be on a leash, they aren't. And the dogs aren't trained to not chase birds because, you know, they're dogs. Most people don't train their dogs not to chase birds. That's just a thing that dogs do. And her birds will be chased by these dogs, and instead of thinking to herself, maybe I should take my birds to a place where there aren't dogs, she just freaks out and screams at the owners and is freaking out about how, oh, your dog chased my bird, and like it's a wonder that her birds have not been mauled or killed by a dog. It's amazing. Because she clearly just doesn't take the precautions that should be taken. She's just consistently putting her birds in danger. Sorry, I have notes down here. She lives in, I'm not sure what she lives in, but it seems to be an apartment, like a small apartment, but it could also be like a small house or something. Either way, her living quarters is small. She has 6 birds, at least. I don't really remember. Excuse me. And they're all, for the most part, they're all very loud birds. Like, they aren't birds that you would keep in an apartment. Like, I have an African gray. And part of the reason I chose an African gray is because they're known to be not as loud as some other birds. And I live in an apartment where my neighbors can probably hear me through the walls. They can probably hear me filming this video. I have neighbors in front of me and neighbors to that side of me. And I can hear them through the walls, so I'm sure they can hear me. I'm sure they can hear Cora. The couple times a day where she shrieks, I'm looking up at her, she's like falling asleep. Are you sleepy? I love you. I'm sure they can hear me. And that's why I don't own... there are several reasons I don't own a macaw, but that's part of the reason I don't own a macaw or something else shrill and loud that tends to scream a lot. And she's consistently like, it's so noisy, I'm gonna get evicted. Maybe then you shouldn't live in a place where it's a concern for you to be quiet. With 6 birds, most of which are loud birds. I know she has a lorikeet. I'm not sure how loud lorikeets are, but most of her other birds are like macaws. Like large macaws, too. Not like the little mini ones. She has a rescue macaw, which is the same species as her younger baby macaw that she just got. It's a hyacinth. Keep in mind, hyacinths are I think they're the biggest, but I could be wrong. The biggest and loudest type of macaw that you can possibly own. And she has 2 of them. She owns 2 of them, okay? This particular bird, the rescue, she got it from someone who, his wife has cancer, and they've fallen on hard times, and they had to give their bird up because they can't care for her and deal with, like, the cancer treatments and all that. So they gave her to Carolin. And they entrusted Carolin with what was probably their best friend of 23 straight years. And this next point it's not really, like, dangerous. I just think it's wrong. This bird had the name Fluffy for 23 years. And when Caroline took her, I'm sorry, I don't know. When Carolin took her, she changed the bird's name to Glory. And I think that when you have a bird with the intelligence of a small child, especially when it's had the same name for 23 years, that it's cruel to change its name. Like, I honestly, for the most part, I won't even change the name of, like, a dog. Unless it's, like, something that I really, really, really can't stand. And I feel that, especially with this poor bird and its whole life just being turned upside down, I think that changing its name is unnecessary and wrong. Keep in mind, this bird was an only bird for 23 straight years. It had 1 owner for 23 straight years. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just ate cake. So I'm disgusting, I'm sorry. And it was an only bird. It hasn't been socialized to be with other birds. It probably got a lot of attention because it was an only bird and lived with these same people who probably spoiled it because, that's what you're really supposed to do with birds. You're supposed to give them as much attention as possible. I give Cora as much attention as possible. If I'm at home, she's out of the cage and she's either near me, like she can see me, or she's literally on me. She's, like, never caged unless I'm at work or she's asleep. Never. And that's what you're supposed to do with birds. She has made several irresponsible decisions with this bird. And one that recently happened is she put the baby hyacinth and the adopted older hyacinth in a cage together Keep in mind, the older one is not socialized to be around other birds. She probably doesn't like other birds. She bit through the baby hyacinth's entire beak and made like a hole, like clear through. And instead of realizing, this is my fault, I shouldn't have put them together, this bird needs more socialization and care and more attention and such, Carolin's response is, I don't think I'm going to keep this bird. And I'm sorry. If something horrible happened to me, God forbid, and I had to give Cora away to someone else, and they were like, she has behavioral problems, I'm going to get rid of her, I would be fucking livid. This poor man should never have entrusted Carolin with his bird. Not ever. I don't think she's going to get rid of it now. It seems that she's attempting to resolve it, which is good. She constantly is just complaining about how many problems there are with this bird and how destructive it is. First of all, you have a macaw. You have a giant macaw with like the biggest macaw possible. Of course it's going to be destructive. And she's complaining that it's jealous and it's not getting along with her other birds and it's unpredictable and there's so many issues with adopted birds. Like, these things are to be expected. Especially when you have an adopted bird who's had the same, like, a consistent life for 23 straight years. And if she were to give up this bird and give it to a rescue, she is essentially destined this poor creature to bounce from home to home for the rest of its life. And that's wrong. Like, if you aren't completely prepared to take on a bird that you essentially have to treat like a small child, like, if you're not ready to care for, like, a small child, you probably shouldn't own a bird. That's just how it is. If you aren't prepared to have a small child, and she's got, like, 6. So she has essentially 6 small children. And if you had 5 small children, I think you would probably think more about having a 6th one. But I don't think she did. And I had something else. I don't remember what it was. And she doesn't seem like she knows what she's doing. She, instead of getting this bird, like, behavioral help, or taking it to a vet, or just spending time socializing it, what she did was essentially, like, bring in a faith healer to, like, pray for her bird, which is, you do you, your religion is, you know, whatever. Do that, I guess. But you have to do that in conjunction with things like behavioral training. Because praying for your bird isn't going to do anything. Your bird is still going to be jealous and upset and not used to other birds. It doesn't matter how much you pray for it. You can pray for it. The positive energy might do something. I'm not religious, but I don't know. Maybe positivity does a little bit. But, like, it would be a lot more helpful if you put more work into, like, behavioral training and socialization and things like that. But she doesn't. And people have said all this. Like, this is all stuff from her YouTube comments. Like, this is all things that people have said and told her and been like, hey, this is a problem. You should correct this. And she doesn't. She just kind of ignores whatever. She just kind of ignores this. She just sort of ignores all the comments and all the things that people are telling her, you need to fix this. And I don't doubt that she loves her birds. I don't doubt that maybe, like, she probably has good intentions for her birds. But good intentions, sometimes, a lot of the time, if you aren't putting the appropriate work in, good intentions will not equal good results. Like, if I'm like walking with you and I step on your foot, you aren't just like, I didn't mean to. You're like, sorry, and then you try not to step on the person's foot again. But like, she doesn't do that. She doesn't learn her lesson with all the birds that she's lost. I assume that maybe she learned some of the lesson because she started putting the GPS on the macaw that kept getting lost. But she was still dumb enough not to put a macaw on the baby. Not a macaw on the baby. A GPS on the baby bird who isn't trained and is flying in high winds. She could have waited until she had a harness that would fit the baby bird. But she didn't. And now that bird is lost. And I don't think she deserves to have that bird back. I'm not saying I want something bad to happen to the bird. I don't. But I think that bird needs to be owned by someone who is going to be more careful with it. I think that's the case for all her birds. I'm sure if she sees this video, she won't listen. I don't think she should have birds. I don't think, at least if she's going to have birds, I don't think she should have as many. Because clearly, she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, I have a bird. You know how long I've had my bird? She's up there being a dingus. You know how long I've had my bird? Like 2.5 months. And even I know that I probably shouldn't take my bird to somewhere with dogs. That I probably shouldn't put my bird in with another bird when I don't know how they're going to interact. Like, that I should probably expect her to be noisy sometimes. Like I said before, she's a gray. Grays are technically quiet. But every morning, she sits on her stand and she screams out the window for like an hour. And she does that as the sun is setting, too. She just sits there and she screams. And I expect that. And it's wrong of me not to. And I think that she needs to either shape up or not have her birds. And I think if she finds this video, I don't think she's going to listen to it. I know she's not. I think for her to change and resolve the things that she's done wrong, I think one of her birds is going to have to die. And that's a problem.